Afternoon, social media community out there. I hope you have all been having a wonderful week and have some great plans for the weekend as we head into this mid February section of 2024. So, today we're here to talk about international travel and, really more importantly, what do you need to know when planning your trip internationally? Now, as a travel advisor, I do always recommend you work with an expert who can help guide you and give you information related to each of these different areas. But today we're really going to talk about some basic areas you want to know about before you go and travel internationally to what I'm going to call a new destination for you. And even if it is an existing destination, sometimes those requirements change. So just keep that in mind. So, the first and foremost is what documentation do you need to get into the country? Now, this is going to differ by which nationality you have as your birth, as well as what type of documentation you hold. So, many individuals might have a passport outside of the US but live here in the US on a green card, work visas, different ideas. Based on those different requirements, you need to know what it's going to take you to get into your country that you are visiting. So, for US based nationality, typically you will need your passport and potentially a visa depending on the country that you are visiting. More and more countries are, even though they have that agreement that you don't need a true visa to enter their country, more and more countries are implementing systems where you will fill out your travel information in advance so that you can go through a pre-security screening for them. Another thing to keep in mind is on your passport, typically, and this is really much more enforced post COVID than it was pre COVID, but you need to have at least 6 months on your passport in terms of validity from your expiration date from the time that you return home. So if you're traveling from June 1st to June 15th, from June 15th 6 months later, so your passport should not expire before December 15th of that year. You want to make sure all of those things are important, and also make sure you have some extra pages in your passport for those countries to stamp on your arrival. Currency and finances. Notify, especially for international travel, your companies, your banking companies that you are traveling so that they do not put a freeze on your credit cards while you are traveling. That's the last thing you want to do. Know what you will be charged for currency conversion on your credit card. So there is typically what the bank will charge in excess of what that currency rate conversion is. So know that fee so you know what your charges might look like. Also know what currency is going to be accepted in the country that you are visiting. Sometimes here you can actually, from the US, you can travel to Mexico and Canada, and a number of places will still take US dollars. That may not be the case outside of North America. Keep that in mind and make sure as you're traveling, you at least have access to a debit card that you can collect local currency upon arrival, or a credit card that you can do a cash advance and know those passwords. Also know your password for international, and more and more banks here domestically have required it. Your passcode on your debit and credit cards can be no more than 4 digits. This is international banking standards, and so make sure your codes comply. Understand country's potential requirement for health insurance. So most people have some sort of a health insurance plan or are covered by medical coverage through their employer. But some countries, depending on the length of your stay, may actually require additional coverage, and it's typically called an international insurance plan. This is not traveler's insurance. This is a separate policy. And the reason for this, again, is many countries outside of the US might subsidize and or cover all of the health care of their individuals that reside there. and they do not want to be responsible for the healthcare costs of individuals visiting. So know your requirements. Again, working with a travel advisor, we can tell you all the requirements. And again, sometimes they do differ based on the length of that stay. Local customs and culture. I cannot emphasize this enough. I do recommend you pick up a book from your local library, from a local bookstore, online, your Kindle, however you prefer to read, and check out local customs and culture. You can insult people by inappropriate behavior without even knowing that you're causing it. So many countries in Asia, if you were there on business and you hand someone your business card, they're going to take the time to look at it and examine your business card. If they hand you a card, it is expected you are going to do the same. You don't want to do what we typically do here in the US. Take that business card, pop it in your pocket. You're going to look at it later. And when you put them into your address book, that is a sign of disrespect. So know those local cultures. Technology and communication. So outside of the US, many places have different standards for electrical outlets. If you have not purchased a converter for the country you're visiting, be sure you purchase a converter. Now that many things plug into USB devices, make sure your converter can handle charging USB devices, or you will be significantly slowed down in charging your laptops and your cell phones if you are using an older converter device. Also know about cell phones. So many US cell phones, you can pay your current carrier to have an international plan, but sometimes that is cost prohibitive. Older cell phones and some models of cell phones, not all cell phones allow it, you can actually change out the SIM card. You can buy a SIM card for the country you are visiting and pop it into the phone so that you are then on a local carrier's network. Again, this is not available for many of the newer cell phone devices if you cannot access the SIM card on the device itself. But oftentimes, especially for travel across North America, so travel into Canada and into Mexico, your provider may actually provide you coverage at no cost. And sometimes you can add daily costs. Plans allow for single day, 7-day, 15 and 30-day, depending on your carrier. That can be more economical. What you don't want to do is not investigate, not know what those charges are going to cover, and actually come through and make a call and find out that call is going to be 45 cents a minute or so. Safety and security, same as you would at home. Don't do anything you wouldn't do at home. Don't wander out at night into unknown areas by yourself. Make sure you are entering and utilizing preferred providers for your cabs, different security advices, and don't look like a tourist. So if you have a big backpack on that's carrying your camera along with all of your different things that you might carry when you're going to visit a place for a day, you could be more of a target. So make sure that your money and your credit cards and your IDs are securely on your person, some way that it's going to be very difficult for someone to take without you knowing. Transportation and accommodation. Use known vendors, especially internationally. You can book VRBOs, you can book homes and villas, utilize main sources for booking those locations for you. And just make sure it's a reputable source. Read the reviews. Always check the reviews. And if you are unsure and you need help, use a travel advisor. It's what we're here for. We're here to make sure that your travel is as unexpected, to minimize those things that might happen for you. Lastly, you are traveling internationally, and if it's a country you have never visited before, you may experience some things you weren't expecting. You may experience some things that you're a little uncomfortable with. Again, knowing those local customs will help you be prepared for some of those things, and knowing what the food options may be will also help prepare you. Go in knowing as much as you can, but be prepared for something to take you by surprise that you just weren't expecting to experience, and open your mind and explore all those options. So I'm Kathy Feather. I am a travel advisor with Travelmation, and I am here to make sure all of your travel is as seamless as it can be.